Hello, everybody. Rick DiClemente coming to you from the Pittsburgh area with Astrology Unplugged. I have a few things to talk to you about tonight, but I'm really going to put them to the side because we're squeezed in between the election and the inauguration, whatever that is, and the fiasco going on here. So we're not going to talk about it. So about, I don't know, 3 months ago, I got a marvelous email from down under from this girl named Kesenya. And she said, I've been following your show. I would like to invite you onto my show. So I said, okay, I'll do your show. And we did that. And then I just got the hang of her and I got to meet the wonderful Kesenya Moore from Australia. And I've been following a lot of stuff by her. Welcome, Kesenya. It's so nice to have you with us. Let me make sure you're unmuted. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's such a privilege and an honor because, as you said, I've been following your channel for years now, and you've been one of my teachers. So I consider it a real privilege to be here and to be seeing all the beautiful faces who follow you every week.
Yeah, you can see the crew here. Yeah, they're right here. We're very cozy, and then we go out to YouTube later on tonight, and we get quite a few more. And you people tuning in through YouTube, if you ever want to join us at 8 o'clock Eastern Time by going to Google and just entering Astrology Unplugged. Well, we want to welcome you from your hot summer of January. How hot is it there?
Oh, it's freezing today.
Yeah.
You can't see the bottom half of me, but I have my pajama pants on because it's cold.
That's why she's on this show. She's loosey goosey like I am. Why do you think we call it Unplugged? I don't know, but we just do. Anyhow, I want to give you a little introduction to Kesenya. I'm getting to know her better and better, but if you watch me closely, I don't have a lot to say about most astrologers because I think most astrologers really try, and it's really, really difficult thing to do. And I don't think a lot of them are really, really good, but Kesenya is one of the really good ones. And I got a lot of pride in her, and I'm really proud to know her. She's been doing this about 10 years. I've been doing it 43. And the rate of knowledge that she's learned is just remarkable. She's very studious. She's studying with some of the best in the world. She doesn't mess around. She doesn't get locked in to this thought or that thought. She pulls in a little from the Hindus, a little from the Westerns, a little from these people. And I really admire that because she's making up her own mind. She's following her own archetypal flow within her. But we made the karmic decision that she was going to talk to us. I know I didn't want to talk about it. She was going to talk about all the good things coming in 2021. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to Kesenya Moore.
Thank you, Rick. Well, a lot of my education has come from people like you. So I have a great gratitude for YouTube and the YouTube astrologers that are putting so much information out there to people to help understand their lives. It's brilliant. I'm actually not a mundane astrologer. So I really appreciate, and for those who don't know, mundane is to look at world events, and that's why I really appreciate what you do, because you can do both personal and you do the mundane stuff as well, and I really admire that. My focus is mostly personal charts and how astrology affects personal charts, but sometimes I do make my own little predictions about what's going on, and I'm not going to talk about the week ahead. You did that last week most beautifully. I'd have nothing to add to that other than perhaps we should also keep an eye on volcanic eruptions or earthquakes and that sort of thing, because Mars and Uranus conjunct often heralds those sorts of events in the world as well. So deep breaths. I think this is going to be the toughest week of 2020 coming up. So we'll see.
I think so.
But I think if I'm to talk about what's coming up for 2020, and it's not all going to be rose-colored glasses, there will be some tough things that we'll need to talk about too, but I'm a big believer in you need to look at what's been and you need to look at the past to be able to understand the present and the future.
Right.
So I want to just have a quick moment and talk about 2019 when Uranus moved into Taurus, it was kind of beginning the setting up of what has been unfolding through 2020 and what is unfolding this year. And whenever Uranus moves into a new sign, that's the time to invest in the things of that sign, because Uranus takes 7 years to move through each individual sign. And in that 7-year period, you'll go through a big roller coaster ride with the things of that sign, and lots of ups and lots of downs. But by the time you get to the end of Uranus's period in a single sign, you will reap the harvest of whatever that sign is all about. So at the moment, in 2019, Uranus went into Taurus, which was the time to go and invest in, environmentalism, agriculture, sustainability.
Bitcoin.
Sorry? Bitcoin. Yes, that's right. All new monetary systems, for sure. But even though Uranus is like a new planet, it's also probably a good idea to invest in old, like, tangibles, because Taurus is very tangible. So silver, gold, those sorts of things, rather than currencies, perhaps. And in the light of what's going on in the moment, currencies are a bit precarious, aren't they? As is the nature of Uranus in Taurus. But yeah, so food, self-sufficiency, all these things are really great things to have invested into in 2019. Now, I know that America and Australia are quite similar in that neoliberalism and capitalism has brought a lot of upheaval to rural communities and provincial communities. In Australia, I'm from provincial Australia, and we've really seen a decline in the last 40 years in provincial Australia, as has been the case, I believe, in America as well. And when Uranus moved in and everyone was saying, oh, invest in agriculture and invest in organics and everything, I was like, how's this going to, be beneficial, because everything's in decline? Anyway, we can now see with what's been unfolding in 2020 that, yeah, sustainability is a good investment. And that's where we're going to sort of, if you're on a sustainable farm or whatever, you are going to be in a better position than many people in lockdown in the middle of the big cities. And, healthy living, healthy lifestyles, all that kind of thing, very, very much a focus. So Uranus was setting things up back then for what's unfolded. And getting back to basics is a big thing. Taurus is also our value system. And so in comes COVID. Everyone now in Australia wants to purchase a country property. Property prices gone through the roof now. And so we're seeing the momentum of the shift that Uranus is bringing in. So nobody wants to be affected by lockdowns, food shortages, and they're waking up to the importance in Australia now, because of the lockdowns we've had and the restrictions and so on, of health, of spiritual connection to nature, of lowered stress levels. And everyone realizes now I can work from home. I don't have to go into my job in the city. They're allowing me now to work from home, so I can live wherever I want to. I'm moving out of the big cities into the country. So suddenly everybody's hungry for Taurian things in life. Certainly I'm seeing that in Australia. I don't know if it's the same in America. I'm assuming there's a momentum that way.
Yes.
So we're as a collective, we're questioning our values, especially collective values and values that have to do with money. Who has the power? Who has the money? Who is in control? These are big questions that this Uranus in Taurus movement is all about. And that really, in came 2020, we started to see the breakdown. We have seen the breakdown of the old order of things and the old ways of doing things. So 2020 broke things down. Some examples, obviously, what's going on in America, big changes, big upheavals as a result of 2020. But, other countries as well. America's going through particularly karmic restructuring, as you most eloquently spoke of last week. But look at China. A year ago, everyone in the world had this relationship with China and their production and what have you. Now, trade deals are off with China. Everything's different. And so there's this complete restructuring of trade systems and everything. And China's just one example. There's a lot of that sort of thing unfolding all over the place. We're reviewing our values, who has the money, who has the power, and who's deserving and who's not, all that kind of stuff. Interestingly, the grand conjunction occurred on the ascendant
Explain what that is.
So I don't know what you make of that, Rick. Sorry?
I mean, explain what the grand conjunction was.
Oh, okay, thank you. So the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, which occurs every 20 years, and it's like an economic social reset.
Right.
And for it to be happening on such pivotal points in the chart of a country means that big economic and social resets are coming for China, which has exactly been the case. I'm not 100% familiar with the American chart and where it fell in the American chart, Rick. The sort of 0 degrees of Aquarius in the American chart. Is that in the 12th house?
That would be
Second house.
The one I work with is Sag rising. That would be about the second house, yeah.
Yeah. So big economic focus there too with the second house for America, which is exactly what's unfolding. So yeah, as we said, breaking things down. Now, I will get to 2021, but like I said, let's have a look at what happened in 2020. Firstly, it was always going to be a year that was out of the box. We had Pluto-Jupiter conjunction, which occurs every 12 years. It's always an economic reset when that happens. We had the outer planet stellium, and when you're looking at for those who don't know what a stellium is, it's a conjunction of 3 or more of the outer planets. And if you're involving the inner planets, it's usually 4 or more planets when the inner planets are involved. But we had this outer planet stellium of Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter in Capricorn, as we all know. That ended a 200-year cycle of outer planet stelliums occurring on average every 20 to 28 years or so. And that's a very rare period of time, of history, that we have had outer planet stelliums occurring within such a short space of time from each other. In the Dark Ages, the hundreds of years went by between outer planet stelliums. And of course, nothing happened in the Dark Ages. There was no progress, there was no up-leveling, that was just like same old, same old. But in the last 200 years, what have we seen in Australia and the world? Progress, advancement, technology, discoveries, momentum, shifts in social status for different people groups and so on, everything. It's been a result of these outer planet stelliums occurring so frequently for the last 200 years. So that occurred this year, obviously, but it was the last one in this period of 200 years of bang, 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 outer planet stelliums. We're not going to have another one until I think it's 2080. So catch our breath, get a bit of relief now at last. But being the last one, it's kind of let's go out with a bang, as it obviously did. Then we had 6 eclipses last year as well. Now, usually there's 4 in a year. So to get a year when there was 6 eclipses, that's out of the box as well. And that sort of heralds an important year of change too. The grand conjunction that I spoke of, Jupiter and Saturn coming together in the sky. That occurs every 20 years. But last year, and you said when we were talking before we went online here, that I did a video all about the grand conjunction where I talk about how much it was a movement into air signs for the first time in hundreds of years. So it's not just a grand conjunction in the process of grand conjunctions. This one is a shift from Earth focus.
A very big shift mentally.
Yeah. So it's been for 200 years in Earth signs. The focus is all on materialism and industrial revolution and let's make money and capitalism and so on. And now the shift is into air signs, and it's the beginning of an epoch, the beginning of an era. We haven't had it in air signs since I think it's like 1205 or something like that. So it's a big momentous year of shifting energies for the planet. We know that. So it's always going to be huge. And so that then leads us to 2021, which is nothing like 2020. It's like, thank God. 2021 is we've broken things down in 2020, and now it's about the rebuilding. We're entering into a phase of rebuilding new systems, new ways of doing things, according to these new values that have emerged out of the breakdown in 2020. And so when we rebuild something, Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say. It doesn't happen overnight. It's, I don't know if you get the Pantene ads there. We have hair shampoo ads, Pantene ads. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen. That's the theory. We are rebuilding something new. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will happen. So yeah, I think that particularly the next few years up until 2023, when Pluto moves into Aquarius, these are the big rebuilding years, relaying our foundation. I mean, Pluto in Capricorn is about building, and it's about foundation, like let's build a new foundation. Pluto in Capricorn, and then he moves into Aquarius and we are off and running with the new, but the building phase is now. So that's what 2021's biggest theme, I think, is all about. So a lot of things are going to tumble by the wayside. A lot of things are going to shift and make way now for the new to come in, but I think it's desperately needed. We couldn't have kept going as a humanity, as a collective, the way we have been.
I think to add to that, I think it's pretty true, and I'm sure you've seen it with clients. The past year has been people getting away from, people letting go of, people breaking down this. They've gotten themselves free. And because of that, a lot of people are doing a lot better beside the COVID. But I think you're right. And I think it's going to be a relief to people to know that 21 is going to be more about, let's go forward now.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people have woken up. A lot of people have discovered astrology for a start, or like I said, they're getting back to basics with their value system. What is really important to me? When you're in lockdown for 7 months with your kids in your house, you start to sort of weigh up things. Is this, what is really of value? I was in lockdown for 7 months with my kids, so I learned a lot. Anyway, we won't go into that. But I don't think any of this is coincidence either. This is all fated stuff. This is meant to happen, and a lot of what's unfolding in the world right now, including what's coming up this week, it's karmic, it's fate. And you spoke about that last week with the Pluto return in the American chart. This is what has to happen. And I believe, as I'm sure you do too, Rick, that we choose our vibrational level, and either we go down the rabbit hole with something, or we choose to lift our vibration and make the best of things. So it's up to us, really, how 2021 is rebuilt and restructured. So, yeah, I think also we need to remember that we've chosen to be here for this time. We chose to incarnate, to experience 2020 for whatever reason, who knows? But we have, and we can't see the big picture of our many reincarnated lives. We have to trust that we're here for a purpose and a reason. And the same for 2021. We're here to rebuild. And it's a privilege, really, to be able to do that. So what are the key events then for 2021 with that background? Well, firstly, let's talk general. There are no retrogrades in March and April. And so I think January and February, as we've kind of alluded to, are going to be the really heavy duty months in 2021. And then we hit March, April, and there are no retrogrades during March and April. And so no planets going backwards in the sky. So we're going to be moving forward quite effectively in March and April. There's going to be a lot of momentum, a lot of progress, a lot of quick change that comes about throughout March and April. So that's one of the general themes in the year ahead. The other is that from the 20th of August to the 6th of October, we're going to have 5 planets retrograde. So in America's autumn and Australia's spring, depending on which hemisphere you're in the world, you can align there. But we're going to find things are like moving through molasses, they like things are slow and heavy, and we don't get that change coming as quickly as we might otherwise do. So if you want to note down some dates to look at, if you want to make some, like, start a new business or launch something new, do it in March, April, not in sort of August to October. If you want, you need to look at your personal chart as well, but that general momentum will be greater and in that earlier part of the year. And then we get to the stellium in February. Now, I mentioned earlier that a stellium is 4 or more planets in a single sign, and it's going to be a kick-ass stellium, excuse my language, kick-ass stellium. in and this is my little wheel here. I don't know if everyone can see it clearly or not, but this is Aquarius up here, and we've got Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Moon, and Sun all together in Aquarius. And this is happening on the 10th, 11th, and 12th of February. And now,
right?
Sorry?
Is that right?
Yeah. So new moon in Aquarius with all of those planets there. And so when we have, thank you for that, Rick.
Sure.
Yeah. So
no problem.
Yeah.
Here's,
so you can.
Here's February.
Yep. So there they all are down in Aquarius there. Now, stelliums are fascinating energy. They are, well, let's start with in Aquarius. It's going to be a time when we're going to see a lot of innovation, a lot of invention, a lot of individuality. And we're going to be around this date, we're going to be pulled into the future, whether we like it or not. You know, this is Aquarian stellium energy. So lots of Aquarius focus here. We're not going to want to be boxed in. We might feel very like sticking it to the man, bit rebellious kind of thing. Hunger for freedom, hunger for equality. All of those Aquarian themes are going to be very big in the middle of February because of this stellium. There's great potential with a stellium too. We're going to see a lot of creativity, but equally, when there's a stellium, there's a lot of heightened sensitivity in a single area of the chart. Mm-hmm. If you have a stellium of 4 or more planets in a single sign, and for those who don't know, I use whole sign astrology. I don't really use the division systems for dividing up houses. I use it in a different process, but whole sign is how I divide up the houses. So if wherever Aquarius is in your chart, whatever house that is, there's going to be a tremendous amount of creativity there, but also a lot of sensitivity that you'll have in your life in that particular realm of your life, governed by Aquarius. So, like, there's a blinkered focus when we've got a stellium in our natal chart. It's like all we can think about is that area of our chart. Say your Aries rising, like in my astrology wheel here, here's Aries, and then that makes Aquarius the 11th house. That's your focus. All you can think about is your friendships, your networks, systems, technology, advancement, dreams, goals, and that's where your focus is, almost to the exclusion of all else. You know, like you forget about worrying about your family because you're so focused on your goals, or you forget about making money because you just want to achieve the goals. It's not necessarily about having that stability and security in life. So the stellium energy is a difficult one to handle. When it's in a natal chart, it can give a lot of lonerism. You feel very lonely. You can also be highly sensitive, especially to criticism in the workplace. Often people with stelliums do a lot better working for themselves than they do working for anybody else, because they're just so sensitive to criticism, and we know workplaces aren't always the most affirming places.
What causes that sensitivity?
I think it's the intensity of all the planets in the one spot. And it's just where all the energy goes, all the mental focus, all the emotional concentration of energy. So that's a bit of personal astrology there. But if you think about it, anyone who's born, if you know someone who's going to have a baby in mid-February, they're going to have this in their chart. So keep an eye on those kids.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah. In 35 years, when the planets mature, those kids are going to be the big movers and shakers coming up.
Exactly right.
So, yeah, I don't know if anyone knows anyone going to have a baby then, but anyhow, so that's happening in February. That's going to be a big Aquarian emphasis as well. But the biggie, and I'm sure you've probably talked about this already on your program, Rick, but the Saturn square to Uranus, that's the thing that this year is going to be defined by more than anything. We have Uranus Thank you. I really appreciate your
I'm just following
ah,
along. You keep on talking.
we're a good team.
There you go.
So here is Uranus down in Taurus making a square aspect up here to Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. Now, these two are going to be exact in their square aspect. Firstly, on the 17th of February, so not long after that big stellium occurs, there's going to be that first Uranus square to Saturn. 17th of February, Mercury will be retrograde at that time, and it's happening at 7 degrees. So 7 degrees of Uranus at Taurus and 7 degrees of Saturn in Aquarius. So if we have any planets around 7 degrees of Taurus or Aquarius, we're going to feel that particular square quite strongly, particularly if you've got personal planets like the sun or the moon or your ascendant or something.
What's the nature of those two planets squaring?
Yeah, I'll talk about that and what they'll bring. Do you mind if I talk about that in a second? I just thought I'd give the dates first. So 15th of June is the next time it's going to be exact, and that's happening at the 13th degree. And then Christmas Eve, December 24th at 11 degrees. So there's going to be 3 major hits, but it's going to be in effect pretty much all year. So what's the effect of those planets? Well, whenever you've got planets making a square in fixed signs, as these will be, it's a real clash of energy. And right from the get-go, Saturn and Uranus, they're almost polaric. They're almost opposite. I mean, in the mythology, Saturn castrated Uranus, his own father. They don't get along, these two. They aren't very comfortable bedmates, even though they both co-rule Aquarius, which is always interesting to me. It kind of proves the contradictory nature that we can sometimes see in the sign of Aquarius.
Right.
But so this year, there's going to be a clash, a strong friction and frustration occurring between everything that Saturn represents, everything that Uranus represents. So optimism and pessimism. Now, Uranus isn't necessarily the planet of optimism. That's Jupiter's territory. But he is about visions and goals, and we can do this and we can make this happen. So there is that spirit of positivity about him. Versus Saturn, well, I don't know. I think, that's not a wise move. And no, make sure, that's Saturn energy. So there are probably the best illustration of the characters of these planets that I can give is you're a 16-year-old teenager going out to a party on a Saturday night, and there's dad sitting in the lounge room reading his paper, or if he's really old school, or looking at his iPad if he's modern. And he says, now, where are you going? You be back here by 10:30. I don't want any child of mine running around the streets until all hours of the morning. And the teenager's like, oh, Dad, you're so strict. And no, you will do what you're told. So that is the dynamic. Saturn is the dad, and Uranus is the little rebellious, I'm going to get out there teenager and make a change and do stuff. I want to live my life kind of thing. So you've got optimism versus pessimism, risk-taking versus conservatism, can't get the word out, freedom versus control, obedience versus rebellion, conformity versus individuation. Like, these are all the words of Saturn and Uranus, and that's what we're going to see in the collective. That's what we're going to see demonstrated.
You're seeing it broadly in this country, with the right's pointing at the left and the left's pointing at the right, and they're real insistent that it's the other guy's mistake.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Really, one's conservative, one calls the left very liberal, and they're blown out of proportion.
That's right. And I think one of the other things we'll see as well is the people, the masses, saying, I'm not going to accept this status quo any longer. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to demand my freedom, and
that could also be Eris too.
Yes, it will be. So the combination of both of them is pretty intense, isn't it, happening at once?
Yeah.
So, we're definitely going to see this sort of thing, the old order, Saturn, versus the new that wants to come in, which is Uranus.
That's right.
So that's the big theme. But that applies to us personally as well. When we might see a desire within us for change. I want to get out of this stuck situation that I'm in, but the opportunity isn't just availing itself. I feel like I have to push. Anytime there's a square, particularly between intense planets like this, it's like a rugby scrum or gridiron, head to head. You're trying to push each other the other way, and who's going to win? Like it's intense and full of friction. So there will be a lot of push-pull, seesawing energy coming out of these two this year. In our personal lives, vacillation between what we want and what we can actually achieve, that kind of energy. So twists and turns. But I must say that change can come, because change wants to come in this year, and change can come with the more, let's say, positive energy of Saturn, gradual, steady, persevering efforts will bring about the changes that are needed. So we have to practice patience this year. We have to practice endurance throughout 2021. And we need to work. I mean, Saturn is to work hard. So it's about working hard towards getting the changes that we want to see happen. So
how many people feel impatient? Not a lot of patience here.
No.
Timmy has a question for you. Go ahead, Timmy. Let me get you unmuted first.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just raising my hand. I was saying.
Oh, okay. That's all right then. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So I think one of the big focuses has to be on, well, what's good for everyone? Because there's such a Uranian energy this year playing out, and that's kind of the bottom line for Aquarius and Uranus. What's good for everybody, rather than what's good for the top dog. We've had the planets Jupiter and Saturn move out of Capricorn, which is all about the top dog being at the top of the mountain peak. And now everyone's like, okay, well, what changes do we need to make that are good for everyone? Which I love. I think that's the promising thing about 2021.
Wonderful.
So that's one of the key events that's unfolding. And we create our reality, as I said. So it's up to us to put in the work this year. I think that it's going to be a year of hard work, but with a purpose, with a reason, with a light at the end of the tunnel. So that is the Saturn square Uranus in a very little nutshell. Rick and I will probably talk about it on our various videos as the year goes on. But then there's the eclipses this year, and eclipses are always big change bringers. And there's only 4 this year, so yay. I don't have to deal with 6 of them. But I don't know if you have ever come across the work of Bernadette Brady. She's an Australian astrologer. She's done a tremendous amount of work looking at Saros cycles of eclipses. Right. For those who don't know what Saros cycles are, each eclipse is a part of a set of eclipses that is playing out over, like, I think it's 14, 15, 1600
19 years.
No, it's not that actually, Rick.
No.
Sorry to disagree.
Right.
Eclipses go in a cycle of 18 years, you're correct. But a Saros cycle is when you look at a set of eclipses that occurred when it was very small and only visible in either the North or South Pole. And then 18 years later, that set of eclipse would reveal itself again a little bit bigger and seen by a bit more of the world. And then 18 years after that, that set of eclipses repeats again. And so it's I think it's 1600 years long from the beginning of the Saros cycle to the end of the Saros cycle when that eclipse set finishes up. So it's rather complex, but fascinating, actually. Mm-hmm. And based on the chart of that first eclipse in the Saros cycle, that is the tone of that set of eclipses for the next 1600 years that's carried. So Yeah, so every set of eclipses has a Saros cycle tone to it. The last one that occurred in December wasn't a very helpful one for society, but the ones that are occurring this year are much better. So we're going to see more positivity coming out of these eclipses. So yes, you're correct, 100% correct. They have an 18-year
kind of
cycle.
like the family of its cycle.
Yes, that's exactly precisely it. Yeah, definitely. So there's two eclipses that occurring that are part of a single Saros cycle, and that is May the 26th, when we're having a full moon lunar eclipse, and that's happening with a T-square to Jupiter in Pisces, I believe, on May the 26th. It's happening at 5 degrees of Sagittarius. Trying to see it there on your chart. Is it there?
May 26th?
Yeah.
May 26th of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I'm using the date May 26th.
That's January the 14th. That's today's date. Is that right?
Hold on, please.
Yeah. This is Solar Fire.
Yes, which is
it's
made in Australia.
It is a great program. Yeah.
Here it is. No, that's not. I picked the hour of noon, but here's a better way to do it. I'll just pick the eclipse button, and just give me a second, and I will put in the new year, 2021, and this one, 2021, and search. And you said to pick out the May 26th one.
I'm using Australian time, so it could be in
That's
your
okay.
part.
That's okay. This is the eclipse pointed out at 5 degrees of Gemini.
Yep, and you can see it's making that T-square to Jupiter there.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the first.
That's a nice one.
Yeah,
That's
it is going to be
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. And the second one in that set will follow 2 weeks later, June 20th, and that will be the new moon eclipse at 19 degrees of Gemini solar eclipse.
June 10th?
Yeah. So those two are part of the same family of eclipses, the Saros series, as we call them. And that set of eclipses it's good. It's not like the ones we've just had, which are full of quite a bit of upheaval. This one has a very psychic theme. It's about prophecy, visions, creativity, imagination. So we'll probably see these themes being enhanced, and that can lead to a lot of positive manifestation. So for anybody who has planets around either 5 degrees of Sagittarius Gemini or 19 degrees of Sagittarius Gemini, then Gemini, we're going to see, you'll probably be heavily impacted by this. You might get a visionary dream, or you might find, some sort of message comes to you in spirit or something like that as a result of the energy of this family of eclipses occurring. And of course, it all depends which house of your chart it's falling in as well. But the square to Jupiter also gives that very ethereal theme as well. So the second set of eclipses that's occurring in 2021, I don't know if I should keep going until Rick comes back. It's occurring on November the 19th, and that's happening at 26 degrees of Taurus, and that's part of a set of eclipses 19th of November, and December the 4th. That eclipse is happening at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. So again, if you've got planets around that area, you're going to be blessed by this eclipse. And this eclipse is wonderful. It is really light-filled. It is beautiful. Its themes are about good news, falling in love, and reaching a personal peak of joy. So I can't wait for this set of eclipses, because I think society could really use that boost, and many people personally could use the boost that eclipse series will bring. But one thing, just a heads up for those of you who use fixed stars. Could I ask, like, who uses fixed stars when they're looking at astrology? Does anybody use fixed stars? No? Okay, cool. The eclipse on the 19th of November is going to be conjunct with a fixed star called Algol. Very interesting fixed star, this one, actually. Algol in the ancient Babylonian was written up as Al Ghul, and it's where we get the word ghoul from.
Really?
So Algol, it's in the constellation of Medusa, and those who know the Medusa mythology know she was very... I hate the Medusa legend, I've got to say. I think it's just so unfair to women, but that's a whole other story. She was compromised by Neptune, and then subsequently by a jealous goddess turned into a monster, so that no men would find her attractive ever again. And she had this hair that was of snakes and things like that. So there's a very dark imagery with the Medusa constellation.
What degree is she at?
She's at 26 degrees of Taurus.
Oh.
So Algol is, she's a fascinating star. What's quite interesting, actually, is that she, in the ancient Hebrew, was what they considered to be Lilith. Algol, the fixed star, was Lilith, not the point that we look at these days, but
right.
the placement of the fixed star Algol was Lilith to the ancient Hebrews. And she's in astronomy. It's a binary star that circles each other sort of every 24 hours or so. So sometimes if you look at her in the sky, she's very bright, and sometimes she's very dim, depending on whether the binary star is in front of her or behind her. It's just, and there's connotations for how that plays out in people's chart who have Algol quite strong in their chart as well. But to just come back to how that's going to affect us, when we have Algol in something like an eclipse or sitting on our ascendant or something like that, it can bring, according to the ancients, it's connected with mischief, and can sometimes be connected with violence, can sometimes be connected with death. So when, you know how I described the binary system of this star, when Algol is in a certain position, like when it's dimmed by its binary partner being in front of it from our perspective on Earth, she gives good results in life. So we might have like the death of something in our lives, and it's the best thing that ever happened to us. You know, we lose something out of our lives and it's actually a gift and a blessing, that kind of thing. But then when Algol is the other way around and very bright, she brings death that's not so good, or mischief that's not so good. So to be honest, I haven't looked enough into it to see at what position she's going to be at the time of that particular eclipse, and whether she's going to be giving us benefits or not. But she will be playing into that eclipse on the 19th.
How do you look that up?
You'd have to go to an astronomy site. I have yet to figure out how to assess that either. But the ancients knew about this. Because they observed the skies, and they watched, you know, and they took things so literally. As the old Hermetic principle, Rick, of as above, so below. They
were right.
They're so right. What is happening in the heavens is what's happening here on Earth. And it's fascinating. So a little closer to the time, hopefully I will have discovered a way to figure out what position Algol is going to be in and how it will be impacting the eclipses that occur.
I had a lady yesterday I was reading, and she was kind of marveling at me about how her money was doing so well, etc. I said, well, didn't you just tell me that you're doing a lot better inside and you're dumping a lot of junk out of your life? She goes, yeah. I said, well, And she started to get it. I said, there is no outside. It's all inside being reflected out there. And she went, wow. And she felt more in control of her life, which was nice.
Yeah, it's so powerful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Those Hermetic principles, honestly, they're just life-changing. If people haven't seen them, Google Hermetic principles. They're wonderful. And they apply to astrology so profoundly too. Just great. Okay, 2021, nearly at the end of the key events for 2021. Mercury will be retrograding this year, as it does every year, about 3 times, but every time it's retrograding this year, it's retrograding in air signs. So again, more emphasis on air energy. It's just a big focus for the year ahead. January 30, it's in Aquarius retrograding. May sort of 29 to, what have I got here, to June 22nd in Gemini. September 27th to 18th to October 18th in Libra. So all 3 air signs are going to get a Guernsey. So there's going to be our thinking processes slow down in when we have a retrograde period in air, Mercury retrograde, which is a thinking planet in air signs. And we might need to sort of, well, I would recommend chatting to people, talking, having conversations with people before making decisions. The more you can, I guess it's a very Libran thing, isn't it? To sort of get different opinions and different perspectives, the more it's going to help you make choices during those retrograde periods.
Well, it sounds to me like the 2020 and 2019 were just so physical and everything collapsing. And now we're saying, maybe we better think about things first.
Yeah, that's so true.
Maybe we should talk to each other and do some thinking. And the proliferation that you're seeing of the internet and all the chat rooms and everybody in the world's got their own show. And sounds like we're doing things right for the first time.
Yes. And that's a lot to do, I think, Rick, with the North Node in Gemini at the moment that we're having, because South Node is all about, I'm up here, you're down there, let me tell you about how to do it, the master, the teacher and the student. But Gemini is about, let's do a workshop, let's share, let's collaborate to share our knowledge and grow our information, which is what we're doing right now. So I think that is part of the momentum for that too, that we're seeing. North Node in Gemini is very much that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's great. The North Node's not going to leave Gemini until 2022. So I think we're still going to be seeing some restrictions around air travel, South Node in Sagittarius.
Right.
Restrictions around traveling and cross-cultural stuff and being able to be, especially here in Australia, we're an island, we're isolated completely. I think that's going to be the case until about 2022. And then we might see things lighten up when the South Node moves out of Sagittarius and the not so much of a emphasis on restrictions and blockage with cultural things, which I'm looking forward to. I like traveling. But really, there's not a lot else happening apart from those things this year. There will be a conjunction of Mars and Venus on the 13th of July at 19 degrees of Leo. And that only happens every 2 years. So it's kind of like a reset when we have, well, you talk a lot about planetary returns, Rick, and how they set, it's like a new cycle up. And this is a sort of a once every 2 year cycle.
Cycle for lovers.
Yes. So if you've had a crap time for the last 2 years, just know you can start it all afresh on July the 13th. Which is
Write that down, everybody. Write it down. Come here.
That's right.
Come here.
New cycle with desire, with passion, with sensuality, all that good stuff. So if you need a bit of a reboot, look for July. And Jupiter at that time too will be in Pisces. So Jupiter's going to be more strong and more powerful than he is when he's the last 2 years been in sort of Capricorn and then now in Aquarius, where he's okay, but he's not super strong.
He's going to fly through Aquarius. I looked at the other day. He's in there now with Saturn. He's going to go all the way through to Pisces. So cash in on Jupiter when he's there.
Yep. And as I've heard you say many, many times, Jupiter is our joy. And I'm just like, perfect. Well, we need a bit of joy in the middle of the year. We need our joy to be strong. And so I love that he's going to be there when we have the conjunction of Mars and Venus occurring as well. I think that's really nice. A bit more joy in our love lives.
There you go.
And to sort of wrap the whole year up, we're actually going into a Venus retrograde on December the 19th. So it feels like we've only just got out of the last Venus retrograde that occurred last year.
The Mars sat on me for 5 months. Sat on me for 5 months.
I know.
So what's the Venus retrograde going to do?
Well, that's happening from December 19th to January 29th. So the whole new year for 2022 will be, with a Venus retrograde set up. Oh gosh, where do you start with Venus retrograde? I've done a whole video on this topic. If people want to watch it, I could talk for an hour or so on it. But basically, when Venus goes retrograde, she meets up with the sun, and then she goes from being the evening star and turns into the morning star. And there's a whole lot of mythological associations with that, and energetic associations too. And the quality of Venus shifts when she's an evening star to a morning star. She becomes like, it's all very much associated with how women present in the world. And so there's a feminine quality to Venus as the evening star that's very, I think it's more, just from memory, more subdued, more sort of receptive, that kind of feminine energy that's wanting to receive,
Jay said, he just typed that her Venus retrograde video is my very favorite.
Oh, thank you.
So look up her name and Venus retrograde on YouTube, and while she's talking, I'll flash her screen for you of some of her connections. Go ahead.
And so anyhow, I just in a nutshell, when Venus then becomes the morning star, interestingly, it's associated with the mythology of Lucifer. Now that opens a whole can of worms, because Lucifer is a very maligned mythology, and it's not accurate. What we know about the Luciferian mythology is rubbish. So I could talk for a long time on that, but that's for another video, I think. Anyhow, as the morning star, Venus, and Lucifer is known as the bright morning star. I'll just try and wrap him up in a nutshell.
Take your time. It's okay. Take your time.
Well, he was thrown out of heaven for wanting to be like God. And but what is not told about, or what is not revealed in the biblical version of this mythology, is that Lucifer was forgiven and taken back and welcomed back with love, which is so beautiful, and Venus, Lucifer, bright morning star, Venus rules forgiveness. So his story is very connected to the feminine archetype of Venus as the morning star. So there's a little bit more ego with Venus as a morning star, a bit more let's go get 'em, the strong, empowered womanhood in Venus as a morning star comes through, particularly because it has this association with the mythology of Venus. Lucifer, morning star. But I go into great detail with all of that in this particular video that I've done on Venus retrograde. So that's probably quite apart from what's going to happen on the mundane level because of Venus retrograde. That's a little bit of mythology, which I love. But Venus retrograde, it's not a good time for starting a new relationship, getting married, doing all those love-based things. You'd even kind of hesitate about making any new investments, anything to do with money, getting any beauty treatments. Never get any elective surgery done when you've got Venus, Mercury, or Mars retrograding. It's just not the best time for doing that sort of thing.
Erica said, don't paint your house purple.
And she's so spot on. She's so spot on because if you go and get a new haircut during Venus retrograde, when Venus turns direct, you'll go, what was I thinking? This looks ridiculous. I hate this, So definitely don't paint your house purple or get a haircut or, go and get laser skin resurfacing or something like that.
Right.
So that's really what needs to be watched out for. But if you've got planets between the spaces where Venus is retrograding, you'll also get 3 hits of Venus as well, which is essentially 3 Venus returns in that, because Venus is retrograding over your pivotal, say if you've got Venus there, you'll get 3 Venus returns. And of course, that sets up a whole Venus return as a cycle of, okay, what's going to happen for me with love in the next year till my next Venus return? And what's going to happen financially for me? So I don't know if people have worked much with return charts, but they're fascinating to look at.
Since you've been doing astrology, I got a question for you. Since you've been doing astrology hot and heavy for 10 years, have you done anything else? I mean, you really have buckled down. You've dug out you've dug out the molars of astrology.
Oh, well.
That's not easy to come up with this stuff real quickly.
Sorry?
It's not easy to come up with all these different facets this quickly.
No,
you must be a real digger.
I am. I probably can thank Uranus with my moon in the 8th house for digging deep.
Had to be Aquarian. Just dig right in. How did you get started?
Well, it was interesting because I grew up in a very religious family, and of course, anyone who's read Dante's Inferno, written in the 1300s, knows that astrologers are reserved for the lowest levels of hell. So that's how I was raised. I'm going straight to hell in a handbasket. So
brother, I'll meet you there.
We'll be there together. We'll have a great time. But no, I was raised very religiously, like think Southern Baptist. That's how I was raised. And so astrology was never on the radar, but I loved the planets and I loved astronomy as a kid. I think it's just in moon with Uranus, you're going to love that sort of thing. So when I went through a divorce at 35, I was like, now hang on, everything that I've been taught, it's rubbish. If I was a good girl and did things by the book and what have you, life would work for me. And it didn't work. I got divorced. I was a single mum with 3 little toddlers in nappies, and life became really, really hard. And so I started looking for answers, and I thought to myself, okay, if everything I've believed so far has turned out to be rubbish, then I'm open to anything. Universe, spirit, show me what is real. Take me where you need me to go. I'll try anything. So I did past life regression work. I looked into like Reiki healing, but astrology was always number one. Yeah. So I've been studying it ever since. I found the most amazing teachers online, of which you are one, but Ernst Wilhelm is another. I highly recommend Ernst. He's incredible. Lada Dancheva, very good friend of mine. I work with Lada, and her courses are great for foundational astrology and just coming to grips with the basics. So it was, as for most astrologers, it's usually through some disaster in life or some upset or dark night of the soul that we start searching and we find the truth. And that's what astrology is. It's the truth. Like Uranus rules astrology. Uranus rules truth as well.
The truth. It's the basis of things.
Yeah.
A lot of you don't feel bad if you aren't going to become an astrologer. That's not what this show's about. This show's about giving you a basis for it. There's a free course online out there on this station. And whether you're a psychologist or you're a farmer or whether you're a house painter, whatever you are, astrology is going to serve you well because you understand the basis. You won't be walking around like so many people do when they go, well, what got into him? I don't know. What got into you? I don't know. Astrologers can't say that. We know what it is. We know what got into you. What are you down under, folks? This is a down under question. What are you down under folks saying about wonderful America?
Well, we have always had a very good relationship with America.
I know. I understand that. What are you saying now?
We're scratching our heads and going,
our heads are sore from scratching. We don't know what's going on either.
No. Look, I can only comment on what my circle of friends are saying, but we were scratching our heads from the moment Donald Trump came into power, I've got to say. It's like, how did that happen, you know? But it's like I've heard you say, it's a reflection. What happens in the government is a reflection of the people and where the people are at. Yeah, so, you know, Boris Johnson in the UK, what the heck was that as well, you know? But maybe that's a reflection of where you know, the English were at, and they're leaving the European Union and all that kind of stuff.
And guess what I just found is the Neptune return. We're having the Neptune return from the Civil War.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
So it's like, did we learn anything?
Yeah.
Neptune was at a certain place in the Civil War, going all the way around. It's back. And that's a spiritual test on what you were doing. Freeing people and seeing them as equal. So it's really pretty clear.
Yeah. It's so they're having that at the same time as the Pluto return in the American chart.
Sure it is. Sure. We're going to take it all on at one time with Pluto squaring Eris too.
Yeah.
See, you guys to us are a real mystery. We see the kangaroos and we see the movies and we hear the wonderful thick accent. And we see so much spaciousness down there. And we saw the terrible summer that you had with the fires and all. But you're quite a mystery to us because you're just so far away.
Well, let me invite you all to come down and visit when we can travel again. Please do. I would love to see, because one thing that's beautiful about Australia that isn't often talked about is the fact that we have the best stargazing in the world down here. Yes,
wow.
I'm totally obsessed. But that's because this is the Earth, right? This little ball. And this is the galactic plane of the galaxy that we're in. The Earth sits slightly above the galactic plane. So you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, you're looking out to other galaxies. In Australia, down under, what do we look out to? The Milky Way galaxy.
Like, it must be breathtaking.
It is. It's beautiful. So come and visit.
Don't be surprised. We're going to all get in a bus and do it.
Yeah. No, but I'm surprised, considering the influence of the stars, that there isn't a greater momentum for astrology in Australia. We've produced like a solar fire, and there are some good astrologers down here, but maybe it's how small our population is. But we have a beautiful heritage as well of like indigenous mythologies around the stars, which are only just starting to come out. They've been very guarded about their knowledge, which is rightly so. So they should be, you know, don't want anybody running away with all their tremendous cultural knowledge. But it's starting to come out more and more. I just noticed recently online that you can study Indigenous astronomy through a university degree at the moment. So I'm just like, that would be amazing. Yeah. So there's a lot of beauty and secrets down here that we hopefully will get a chance to share in the future.
I think a lot of Americans are going to be heading that way anyway.
Well,
they're coming out all over the place.
Yeah, please do. There's plenty of space. But one thing that's just recently happened in the Australian chart is that we've had Saturn moving across our sun placement. We have the sun in Capricorn.
Are you really?
Yeah, in the 10th house. And so it was really interesting when the sun was sitting on, when Saturn was sitting on our sun, that's when we were in lockdown. That's when we were almost like real nanny state. I live in Victoria, which is a state of Australia. And the guy who runs our state was known as Dictator Dan throughout the period of lockdowns, because he wasn't very popular with how draconian he was being. And this is all while, Saturn was with the sun. And I thought, the world gets to see how conservative Australia actually is through that period. And we are quite conservative, unfortunately, but I think that will shift now in the future.
Do you see, as I do, that more and more astrologers are becoming Jungian?
Yes.
Thank God. That's saving us. It's saving us. Because I was talking earlier about, I don't think a lot of some astrologers, but the new Jungian people are just blowing my mind, because they're taking it to a much deeper level. And I don't know about you, but I'm just seeing people are so much more ready to talk about their archetypal path, their archetypes that are happening to them. They're understanding this connection, and that's thrilling, and it's optimistic.
Yeah, he did wonders for modern astrology. Honestly, he changed everything. So we owe him a great debt, actually. I've never explored his chart, but I think I should.
His chart is really, really simple. And I kept looking at it, and then one day it just exploded, because it's got the sun on one angle and Neptune on the other. And it's just a pure chart of solar energy, which is investigating the self with great confidence, but really knowing Neptune. He really knows Neptune. Jung didn't say, I think this is the theory here and there. He told you how it was. Yeah. That's not what this dream meant. This is what the dream meant. He just tells you. He's not cocky. He just tells you. So I ended up finding out his chart is extremely strong in its simplicity.
Oh, I must have a look. That'll be the first thing I do when I.
Please do, because don't just glance at it. Look deep at it, and you'll see what I found. And I was just shocked by it. So what is your goal? You're 10 years into this. What do you want to do with your astrology?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I was asked this by a girlfriend. We had a ceremony together around the time of the grand conjunction, because that was solstice, and I'm quite interested in ceremony and that kind of thing. And yeah, that question came up, and I thought, I think I've actually achieved everything I wanted to. It's time to set some new goals, but I haven't set any yet. So I love doing charts. I love teaching. I think teaching astrology is probably where I'd like to.
You're really, really, really exceptional at it. And I know for a fact it's not easy.
No, because
you have a real gift for it. You have that ability to take the abstract and assign it to people in their life. Do you feel like taking a few questions?
Yeah, I could do that for sure.
If you got more to talk about.
No, I'm done. I'd love to answer some questions. Yeah.
Well, let's put her on the spot and ask her some questions, because I think she can dance real quickly if I fire the gun near her feet. So if you got a question, just raise your hand and I'll get to you. Don't be nervous. And there's no such thing as a dumb question. I think Zhao's got his hand over his mouth here, so he's probably got one for you. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Zhao. Tell me about. I want you to unmute yourself. Tell me about why you like that Venus retrograde series she did.
Well, I actually found you, Rick, through Kesenya.
Yeah.
I've been following her on YouTube. I've subscribed to her channel.
Now I gotta pay her again. Yeah. That's two people now.
For the better part of a year. And then you two did a video together on her channel. And that's how I found you. But that particular Venus retrograde that you did in 2020, Kesenya, was so interesting to me. I watched it many times because I personally have Venus in Gemini retrograde.
Oh, you do?
And so I dove right into that one because you went into detail into that specific thing. So thank you so much. That was wonderful. So the only question that I can think of right now is because this main theme of Saturn square Uranus for the whole year, you know, the very second one that's going to happen on June 14th at 13 degrees, that square is falling directly. You know, I have my ascendant at 13 degrees and 9 minutes of Taurus. So that square is squaring and opposing my ascendant.
Yep.
Could you
So
elaborate
your ascendant's at 13 degrees of Taurus.
Taurus.
And so you've got Uranus transiting your ascendant.
It's going to do 3 hits this year. Yeah.
Hello.
And one of these hits is going to be at the same time with the square.
Oh, boy, you're in for some fun, buddy.
With Saturn.
You're in for some fun.
I think like the square from Venus to Uranus is going to be important for you, but that Uranus crossing the ascendant is one of the top 4 transits a person can have for complete life change, complete turnaround. So you're going to notice the Uranus transit, I think, more than the square to Saturn. That will play in a bit, but you'll be so in the throes of Uranus crossing your ascendant. You may change your appearance completely. You might redirection your life entirely to, you know, quit this job and go here and do something like that. I got divorced. Uranus rules divorce. I got divorced when Uranus crossed my ascendant. And I'm not saying that's going to happen for you, but that's the kind of like big, impactful life change.
I might be moving to a different continent, so I'm thinking that it's going to happen around that time. So
that'll be it.
Don't try to predict this planet. Don't try. It doesn't even know till the day it happens. It's unpredictable. It will not be Paris or London. It will be somewhere weird. It just will be. That's how Uranus works. It'll be fun though. Be fun as hell.
It will.
We could all use some fun right now after 2020. That's for sure.
Sure could.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else would like to? Okay, Erica, you need to unmute, dear. Where'd you go? There you go. Yeah, you're on with. Hi,
Kesenya.
Where is she?
Can you hear me?
There she is.
I just wanted to know more about that cycle of the eclipses that you were talking about that takes, like, what did you say, 1700 years or something to go completely around?
Yeah. So
how do we know when it started, or how do you even look at that?
I would recommend a book by Bernadette Brady, and you can buy it online. It's, give me a second. I can't recall the title.
Okay.
What these eclipses are is they appear to us, but they belong to a bigger family that started way back, and they carry a similar thread. Go ahead.
I'm wondering how we know when it started, or does that matter?
In that book,
or
that's what that book is about.
Wherever we are, or how do we even?
So this is the book. That's what it looks like. It's called Predictive Astrology. It's called Predictive Astrology, The Eagle and the Lark.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that one. Yeah.
Very good. So in it, she talks about a lot of different predictive techniques, and one of them is this Saros cycle. And she has, I'll just try and find it, a table. Yeah, she has a table at the back. It's about, oh gosh, it might be nearly 50 to 100 pages long, of when, I don't know if you can see there, when the eclipse cycles started and when they will conclude. So all the information is there for you to research and see what each set of eclipses will be about. Also, what's interesting with that cycle is the first eclipse is not very strong. But by the time you get to, neither is the last eclipse, but when you're in the middle at about 700 years in the cycle, that's when you have an eclipse that's super duper powerful. Because, and I'll try and explain, it's helpful if I could use this with a diagram, but the first eclipse will usually be, I think it's roughly about sort of 12 degrees away. The moon and the sun are 12 degrees, say the nodes and the sun or the moon are 12 degrees away from one another. And by the middle of the set of eclipses, the 1600-year set, the moon and the nodes, or the sun and the nodes, whatever, they're practically on one another.
Right.
Wow.
They're close. And then you'll have the sun or the moon having eclipses behind the node, if that makes sense, and getting out to its furthest point before it's no longer an eclipse.
Wow,
So
it sounds fascinating. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out.
yeah. So
Thank
if you remember back to the eclipses, say November the 30th, I think it was, the eclipse that took place on November 30th, I think there was like 3 degrees between the node and the sun and the moon. And so we're in the middle phase, like the strongest phase of that particular Saros cycle of eclipses.
See, I'm looking at it. I know I'm off the screen.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the eclipses that we just had. One of them belongs to Saros number 121, 147, 126. So with astrology software, it tells you where the eclipse is, what degree and all that, what time, but it tells you what cycle it belongs to.
Mm-hmm.
I just recall that a few years ago in the United States, we had a huge eclipse.
Yes.
But it was an eclipse of the sun that went from like Washington State and Oregon right straight through like South Carolina. And that's where so many things just broke out like 2-3 years later.
That's correct. That's right.
And that would have been an eclipse that was at the center point because it was so visible in the world, and I can't remember the degree difference, but remembering how big that eclipse was, I think it would have been very close between the orb of the sun or the moon and the nodes to cause that.
Okay, thank
you.
And Erica,
it even
thank
went
you.
into COVID.
Erica, I'm going to move on. I got people.
COVID.
I got people that want to ask questions. So Timry, you're
Yes.
on. Thank you, Erica. Go ahead, Timry.
Thank you.
So the square between Uranus and Saturn, do you believe that this is going to change financial stability in the world and particularly for United States?
I think Uranus is doing that throughout its 7-year cycle in Taurus for sure. But I think that the square this year that's occurring is going to cause a lot more upheaval. I mean, Uranus is upheaval anyway. Whether it's like, I haven't had a look at the chart of the United States to see where this square is playing out and what it's triggering. So off the top of my head, I couldn't say for sure, but certainly all the indicators look like
you're going to have to remember, Timry, that the United States is going through a Pluto return, and it rules big money and all that. And what that means, that makes Saturn and Uranus look like little babies. A Pluto return is about complete change to the entire economic and banking system.
Okay.
It's that big. And Uranus and Saturn are more small scale. Thank you. I'm going to go on to Varushka had her hand up.
Can I just say to Mary, I would encourage people to invest in solid stuff, not currencies. All of us across the world right now. So if you've got a bit of spare cash, maybe buy some gold or some silver or something. The tangible things.
Good idea.
Rather than currency, no matter where you are.
Varushka, you're on with Kesenya.
Thank you. Kesenya, I watched your Jupiter spring series and your Saturn autumn series, and I was quite fascinated by it. I have Jupiter and Saturn now in my first house, and I was trying to put the two different perspectives from your videos together, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this on my own. So I wanted to just ask for your reflections and thoughts on having both Saturn and Jupiter in the first house.
It's not easy, is it? Because they're so polaric, one's about restriction and blockage and one's about expanding, no boundaries, So do you have, what degree is your ascendant?
12.
12. So you'll really notice it when each of those individual videos and what they talked about will come out strong when those planets cross your ascendant. Saturn crossing the ascendant is another one of those key pivotal transits, resetting your life, starting a new cycle. So again, as my teacher Ernst Wilhelm says, the further out you go, and Rick's already just alluded to that as well with Pluto, but the further out you go with the planets, the stronger their impact. So Saturn is going to be the stronger influence out of these two. But it's about starting fresh, turning over a new leaf, beginning a new life, which in our earlier discussion, you were saying you've done this year, you've started. When did that happen? Was that when Saturn made its little momentary blip into Aquarius earlier in 2020? That you
no, I think about 6 months prior to that. My North Node is in Cancer, and so it was triggered by the eclipses in 2019. So I made the big move in 2019, and it's there's just been lots happening in my 12th house. So I'm kind of just coming out of that and this, I don't know.
Well, Verushka, don't be confused by the fact that Jupiter has this nature and Saturn has that nature, because they're two major keys on the piano, okay? And there's no reason at all that you can't blend the two. It just simply means if it were just Jupiter, you would go wild. If it were just Saturn, you'd really lock down. And when you blend the two, it just means to move with cautious optimism, to go ahead and move forward, but to do it sanely. That's what it means when you can mix the two together. Now, on the day and the night that Saturn's on you, forget what I'm talking about, because you're going to be going blah, 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 like this. But there's every reason that you can blend Saturn and Uranus, Saturn and Jupiter, all these planets. Okay?
Thank you both. That was great.
Okay, I want to move on to, was it Claudia? Okay, good. Unmute Claudia. You're on. Thank you, Verushka. You're on with Kesenya.
Hi, Kesenya.
Hi,
So
Claudia.
you spoke a little bit about, and that was great, when you talked about, I think it was Medusa, on the fixed star algol. My ascendant is going to be right on that eclipse, or the eclipse is right on my ascendant. That'll be very interesting. I have no idea, but more to come on that. But December 4th is my daughter's birthday, and that's another eclipse. And I don't remember what was that eclipse like?
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yes, that Saros cycle is about love. That Saros cycle, I just have to make sure I cover what I've got written in my notes here. Good news, falling in love, a peak of joy. So
wonderful.
It's that eclipse is a very light-filled set of eclipses at the end of 2021. So
wonderful. Thank you. I have a collective question that I think will be interesting for everybody too. I think this will be, I'm finding that, of course, I'm obsessed with this and I can't put it down, astrology, but because of the Aquarian energy that we're currently in, I'm finding people that are not normally into this are really coming into this interest, this open-mindedness of considering astrology. Are you both as astrologers finding the same thing? I mean, it's got to be, and I think it's going to be increasing.
Absolutely.
The quantum age has brought it.
Yeah, it's becoming a lot stronger, and you're going to see it grow even more in 2021. That'll be one of the hallmarks, I think, of 2021. It'll become very, very popular. And you can already see it, especially in the younger generations, because they're not burdened by the old school thinking any longer.
Yes. They're so open.
They are, and they're into their astrology memes and all that sort of thing. And my daughter, she's 12, and all her friends are like, wow, your mum's an astrologer, that's so cool, and what's my sign say? And they all want to know about it. So
yeah.
Well, the unbelievable thing is what's kept us alive all these years is these stupid horoscopes. Because so many thousands of different people write these horoscopes, And most of them are like, oh, please. But they've kept people identifying with their Aries, their Taurus, their Gemini, and it's kept them alive long enough so that the archetypes can start hitting them at a time when they can conceive of it, right?
Mhm.
Exactly.
Kesenya, we're gonna wrap things up. I don't know what else to tell you other than it was just such a joy to have you, and I want to invite you back anytime you want to come back.
Same for my
Yes.
channel, Rick. It's been so much fun. It's been a
You're
delight to
just a
talk with you
delight.
all. Thank
This-
you.
This will be up tonight on my page, and if you want me to mail it to you, I'd be glad to. So you can do what you want with it. I want 50 cents each time it's shown.
Gee, I wish I got that.
Thank you so much. You are a delight, and I wish you best of luck with your continued learning. And let's stay in touch. And I'm glad everybody got to meet you. Thank you all very much. Next week is just me. You have to deal with just me. Okay?
We love just you.
In 2 weeks will be Linda Veros talking about Reikis. Everybody a Reiki master? Okay. Thank you. Much love to you, Kesenya. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Kesenya. Thank you,
Very,
Rick.
very much.
Good night, everybody.